Today, mining companies are generating more data than ever before. Are you embracing the power of this data to be better at mining? Jump's Mine Analytics Playbook enables mining companies to harness this valuable data into actionable insight and focus on making the right, data-driven plays for a more efficient and cost-effective mining operation.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us for our session today. We're going to be focusing on the theme of analytics and interpreting data and what that means. My name is Michael Matrick. I'm going to be with you for the better part of the various sessions that we have going on today. We are one of the session sponsors, and we're pretty excited to be a part of this event with Minds and Mets, and the wonderful audience that we have in attendance, and our speakers and panelists that we have that we'll be meeting and interviewing with throughout the day. So I just thought what I would do is, just to get started, is give you a little bit of introduction to who we are at Jump Analytics and what we're all about. And then once I get through a few minutes of that, I'm going to flip it right over and we're going to go over and meet with Cristian, who's waiting very patiently for me to jump into the panel discussion and have a very engaging discussion on what analytics means to the mining industry. So just to get started, first and foremost, I hope everyone's operating in a very safe and controlled manner. I wish everybody the best during these pandemic times, and I think everybody in the mining industry as a whole have been operating in a very safe and efficient way. So I just want to make sure, usually we always have safety moments, and I want to make sure I initiate some element of safety to everybody as we're getting involved in the session today. So who's Jump Analytics? We are a data analytics company, as our name implies. Our mission to date has always been about bringing insights to action. And as we all know with data and analytics, a report provides you with insight, but it's very difficult sometimes to action on the data that you actually collect within your report. So one of the things that we've been really hard at doing is taking all that data and mashing it together to create insight and action for our clients and our customers. So as a background, we've been in the industry for over 20 years. We've worked across multiple industries and really pride ourselves on being leaders and experts in data. It's one thing I started my career on over 20 years ago was data. I walked into the data industry, didn't really know much about it 20 some odd years ago, and to see where we fast tracked it today and how it's impacting all these industries across the world is pretty powerful and pretty impactful. And I'm pretty excited about what it can bring to the industry. As it pertains to mining, we're very, very invested in the mining area. We're committed to bringing the innovation of data analytics to the mining sector and helping mining industries to really understand how they can leverage the information that they already have access to, but they're not doing it in a very efficient or meaningful way. So one of the things we like to pride ourselves on is that we don't only just understand data, but we understand mining. And the combination of data and mining are very important. Oftentimes, you'll have individuals talking about data, but without the context of mining, it doesn't mean anything. And as we all know in the mining industry, data and mining can mean different things to different people, whether in exploration, whether you're in mining on the engineering side, or you're on the milling side, or on the safety side, or even on the corporate side. Each element of data means something different to each of those stakeholders. So we really pride ourselves on being able to immerse ourselves into all the various systems that are used at a mine site, which are obviously common and large and many, and sometimes manual. As we know, Excel is out there and pretty prevalent across the sector as a whole. And we like to bring all that information forward. So that's one of the things that we like to pride ourselves on doing. And what we're going to be talking a lot about during the next hour and a bit, I guess, is really the Jump Mine Playbook and how that really kind of brings everybody together and brings the systems together and organizes data in a way that allows you to really tackle those insights and bring them to action. And we're going to be showing you that during one of our innovation spotlights that we'll be doing a little later on. That'll be led by Jeff Armstrong, and I'll be introducing him a little later. As we move forward to the most important topic of the day and for the session here is meeting our guest, Cristian. So I'm going to stop my share and we're going to move over into the interview C-suite. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy our session. Okay. I'm assuming we're all good. Cristian, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. Hi, Cristian. Great to see you. Nice to chat with you again.
Yeah. Nice to see you too. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. I'm just going to give everybody a little background, Cristian, on you before we get started. Just to set the context, I will let you do some better due diligence and do yourself some more on your experiences. But I just do want to start with sort of your background. So your current title, you are the Global Director of Analytics for Glencore. And I know you just recently joined Glencore just a couple of months ago or 3 or 4 months ago. You're in Chile. I'm in Canada, you're in Chile. This is the beautiful thing about this international sort of reach and capability is we can be all over the world and be talking with each other in this kind of capacity. I know that you spent some time at Codelco, another mining company where you were heavily involved in digital transformation and utilizing your background because you and I chatted when we spoke the other week is you've got the blending of engineering as a background, but then you have the science background, which engineering is a science, but you have computer science. And you have extensive experiences in being able to bring those two disciplines together and then makes it what I call the PowerShell is really the mining component of it and being able to bring those experiences to the mining industry. So I'm really excited about our discussion today. And with the theme being of this session being analytics and interpreting the data and knowing your experiences, Cristian, I'm really interested for you to tell the audience here is, and at the same time, please give some more, commentary to your background and your experiences as well, please. But one of the questions I'll have for you is, what does data analytics mean to you, and what has it meant to you in your experiences to date?
Yep. Thanks for that introduction, Michael. Yeah, you're right. So, I consider myself, a really curious skill set that allows me to speak all these different languages, and combining them is really my passion, something that drives me, right? What is data analytics? Well, for me at least, is essentially translate and going from data, information, and then actions. That's the more important things for me. Sometimes we have a lot of data, we have a lot of infrastructure in place, but we don't leverage this to transform it into action, into decisions, but more importantly, into actions in our operational decisions or business decisions. And by doing this, of course, getting better quality in our decisions. So for me, analytics helps to make better decisions in terms of quality. So improving the quality and the background information that regarding our decisions, and also intensity, because decisions have different time frames in terms of the impact of its decisions and how often we require to make those decisions. Just to give you an example, we have of course batch processes, in different parts of the value chain, but we also have streaming processes that are continuous. So how I can first stabilize and optimize processes that have really low timeframes. So how to kind of automate those decisions is also part of the analytics journey from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you feel with your experiences and your background coming to Glencore? What do you feel that advantage is for you and for Glencore? Because it sounds like it's a bit of a power punch. It sounds like it's a great combination. Global mining entity, lots of assets, meaning lots of data, lots of things to do. There's cultural things. There's all sorts of different governance that needs to play into this factor. How do you sort of see things playing out for yourself?
Yeah. Look, in Glencore Copper, we're doing a lot of. We are looking for the opportunities where we can leverage analytics at the moment, and we are identifying where we can do transformational journeys. So my vision around this is to actually transform how we operate. Not only just bring solutions or off-the-shelf solutions, but transform how we operate, transform how we make decisions in the sites and in the assets. So I think my background allows me to speak, the three different languages pretty well. So mining engineering, that's probably my core bachelor, and then metallurgy as well. I did a master in metallurgy and computer science. So I can't understand very deeply the three of these topics. And sometimes I think probably the key is know how to deploy this transformation journey. Sometimes we want to acquire a solution, we want to buy a tool, but these tools sometimes are not used by the operation because they don't actually understand how to use it, or how they don't understand how we can leverage these tools or technology even to make better decisions. So I think my background allows me to understand that, how we can deploy it and how we can change our processes, and specifically mining processes, to create a more interesting and more powerful feedback loop into the actions and what is happening in the asset. So that's probably part of the things that I'm actually improving and evolving around Glencore.
No, that's great. And you mentioned a couple of things I just want to highlight there. And it really, you mentioned there's the education. And so one thing you said is there's tools. There's a lot of vendors out there providing a lot of tools, a lot of things, data this, data that, AI this, machine learning this. And I mean, it can all mean so many great things, but if it can't be applied to a best practice in an industry, especially in mining, it doesn't really mean anything. And if you're not interpreting it, and more importantly, if you're not drafting or crafting it specifically for the user community, so if you're talking about exploration, or if you're talking about milling, if you're talking about the short-term planner, the mine general manager, even the corporate lens, if you can interpret it well enough and provide that level of education, it makes it very difficult to utilize these tools, as you were mentioning. You could have tools everywhere. So I guess on that note, what have you seen in the past that you've used in your experiences and that kind of help kind of broker that relationship between the user and the service and the technology to drive efficiencies?
Yeah, so reality is that the real digital transformation when we actually change the culture of doing things. As you said, we need to look this implementation as a whole. So we cannot separate and isolate just the tool or the data or the technology. And technology and data is complex, but at least from my perspective, it's not the hardest part when you actually are trying to change and improve your business. The hardest part is to promote and democratize these sort of tools, so everyone in the organization knows that they exist, because that's really important when leveraging technology. You need to know that something exists, but then you need to be very creative in the way how to apply that technology to help your business. And if you look in the value chain, yeah, it's relatively complex, right? So value chain goes from exploration to the port, right? So it's a really broad business, and each of those value chain processes are really specific by themselves. So it's not only about the technology and the data, but also the subject matter experts need to understand that this is available for them to make better decisions, to improve their business, and also to improve their experience. Sometimes the benefit of the automation or the digital analytics, or even the automation that you can do around these processes can help you to get rid of the boring job work. You know what I mean? So then you can focus on the important things, on the things that actually can add value, and you can bring your wisdom as a human being instead of actually doing data input or copying data across and that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
you need to look at it as a whole. That's probably part of my opinion. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we know with the mining industry as a whole, there are often challenges, not just on processes, which is one thing, people being another thing, technology being. Then there's the governance, right? There's that governance piece of how you're looking at data and and interpreting that information. I guess I'm curious, in your experiences, have you sort of looked at governance as a whole, and then how to build sort of governance around data to make sure that the information you're looking at is really the true fact that you want to be looking at?
Yeah, so governance is always a challenge, specifically in the mining industry, because we are getting into this journey very recently. I would say, where compared to other industries, for instance, finance, banking, where the data is actually key in their all of their processes and all of their business. We need to understand that the different roles around the data governance, for instance. So the usual thing is that everyone thinks that they own the data they produce, but they need to understand that data also have value to other people, right? So for me, the first step is always informing and clarifying the roles, because there are roles behind a data governance, right? And then assign those responsibilities around business. Who is actually responsible, or who is actually the stewardship around a data set, or even just what data point? Who needs to worry about, and what are the actual functions of the people who's warding this data? So there's different methodologies, I suppose, and probably that's the hardest part, because it works with the organization. And sometimes in the mining industry, we are very worried about some putting on fire sometimes, instead of actually worrying in the quality of the information. So we need to show them that the balance and to treat data as an asset. That's essentially my understanding. Data is an asset and should be looked as an asset, not only as an expenditure, for instance, right?
Yeah, it's funny, I've been listening to a lot of different speakers and presentations over, yesterday and as of today with the Minds and Mets conference. And it's interesting that there's a common theme that a lot of the individuals on the panels or the C-suite interviewers, interviewees have been talking about, which is really utilizing the information better. And it's like there's an interest and a thrive and a desire to do so, but it doesn't seem to trickle itself down to the organization so that people start to really feel that data is important. And that kind of challenges the organization on education, on being able to understand the importance of the data. And the other thing that's really hard in the mining sector that I've seen and we encounter a lot is the data is very dirty. And data is collected across a vast amount of systems. You talk about the data historians, doing a real-time, transactions capturing of the mill. And then you look at exploration or dispatching, et cetera. And the data that's coming in isn't necessarily how the data needs to be formatted to be presented, to be able to make sense of it. And that's that translation tier. And that's where, I think we find it interesting and exciting is that, when you understand mining, you understand how to interpret that data and translate into something meaningful. But there are challenges in connecting systems together, right? And being able to do that. And now with the world being connected to the cloud, and I know that not all mining companies can connect to the cloud quickly because of infrastructure challenges, et cetera. But as those systems do become more mainstream, there's more data. So to the point, data is becoming all over and everywhere, and it's being difficult to manage. So what do you see are some of the ways that you can sort of address and deal with that challenge?
Yeah, so data integration, there's two worlds in mining. So the operational technology which has its own challenges, right? So essentially all the technology that is in direct contact with the operation. So it's a very hostile environment. And of course, you said it, connectivity is a first challenge, right? But then the architecture in terms of data architecture is something that need to be understood as a whole. I've seen a lot of experts that call it operational backbone, and I really like that terminology. You need to think in the correct operational backbone to support your platforms, right? And that operational backbone at the end of the day will help you to scale, right? So if you do it right, you make the right, correct data architectural decisions from the beginning, it will help you to scale across your digital portfolio, right? Because it will provide the same services across all your businesses, right? So then the challenge shifts, and how do you integrate that data more than how they will flow across the business, right? So you translate the challenge, it becomes a data, instead of data architecture challenge, it gets translated just into how to integrate and pull the data from the OT layers or the lower layers of your process. Yeah. So I think is important, of course, but you don't need to develop a massive architecture. You always need to tie or to match your architecture with the use case that you're trying to deploy, right? Mm-hmm. So by doing this, you tie that development and start delivering value from the beginning, if you know what I mean, right? Yeah. So you don't have to create a massive building if you don't have the people to populate it, right? So that's something good, and the cloud allows you to create prototypes. So rapid prototyping is also a good thing. So rapid modeling, or even just deploy a dashboard. That's something that we as a business are starting to do it now in Glencore. So we will do a lot of business intelligence and start leveraging the data that we already have, but to make it more available to everyone. So
yeah, for sure. That interesting point that you made there, which is, you can't build this all as a large project. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of companies feel that when you start talking about reporting and analytics and dashboarding and insight, and that it gets to be, sometimes it's like it seems too big, and people just walk away from it because either they've had bad experiences in the past, because there have been failed projects. Let's be clear. So people have had that sort of, I've been around, I don't want to do it again. But I think in your point, it's through better methodologies and better processes and implementation designs and rapid prototyping that I think is really important to the industry, is that you can really fast track these solutions quickly. And that's one of the things that I think we've recognized ourselves at Jump, is that we try to look at those 6 to 8 to 12 week success points. And if we can't prove something out within that time frame of generating value back to the mine operations, then we need to really think about the solution. And it gets everybody sort of in the right mindset. It's looking at micro components of a larger problem, but they must feed up to the overall strategy of where you're trying to go. And I'm assuming, with your background, and I know we talked about this before, is, with that computer science background and doing digital transformation, you've probably been well-versed on Agile methodologies and how to apply that to the mining industry to do this type of innovation and design, right?
In digital, that's a must. In digital analytics, Agile is a must. It's not something that maybe we will do it in an Agile way. It's actually their way how to do digital analytics. And I think my feeling around that is because sometimes you realize at the end of, in the middle of the journey, that you need to pivot, right? Because you were trying to solve, or you were trying to improve a process that is not your actual bottleneck. And then you need to start pivoting. Otherwise, you will try to improve a process that won't reflect in your bottom line. Mm-hmm. So the ability to do rapid prototyping and to deploy a product easily, relatively faster, to test it is key, right? And I always, now in my speech, I always talk about minimal viable everything. So what is the minimal viable architecture? What is the minimal viable data that we need to do analytics? What is the minimal viable, sensing layers that we need to improve or modernize to actually get us to the next level? And this minimal viable everything is something that comes from Agile, so the minimal viable product, right? Yeah. And for me, that's key, and it's the way to do stuff in digital and analytics. Yep.
Yeah, the minimum viable products and doing those development sprints are becoming so popular. It just gives everybody the opportunity to validate the assumptions. Are we doing the right thing? We're looking at a project right now on doing some AI machine learning on the conveyor belt. And, it's a challenge for the business to understand, how much is this going to cost and is it going to work? Well, we have to try it. So, we want to be able to do that and do that. I'm getting notes that we are running up to the top of our time here, Cristian. And And I do want to have us, close out on a very, open note. So any last words from you in the last sort of 5 to 10 seconds that we have here?
Yeah, I mean, everyone should appreciate digital analytics as a journey, not as something that you can buy off. You need to actually get embedded into the journey and be open to transform yourself and transform your teams to this new way of doing things.
Excellent. Cristian, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. We could probably spend another couple hours talking, but thank you. And everybody, thank you.